Afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We are so delighted to have you all here with us today. And I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land we are on, the Natchitoches people. And the Natchitoches people were farmers and traders who resided on the lands along the banks of the Anacostia River. However, with the arrival of European settlers significantly reduced their population through disease, warfare, and forced removal starting in 1608. By the 1700s, the remaining Natchitoches people joined other tribes, including the Piscataway, who continue to be stewards of these lands. And today we begin by acknowledging their elders, past and present. 80 years ago, the first nuclear weapon was detonated. No one knew exactly how big the blast would be, but the US government chose not to evacuate its own citizens in the area and people in the area. After that blast went off, kids were playing in hot flakes of what looked like snow, not knowing what it was. And those communities are still reeling from the impacts of that blast even today. Instead of caution, the United States government then chose to unleash those very same bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Survivors have told us that the experience was like being unleashed into hell. In the years that followed, they conducted dozens of atmospheric nuclear tests over lands of waters of Pacific Islanders, and then beginning in 1951 in southern Nevada, and built up complex production sites that continue to have disastrous effect of both the land and people until this day. In response, people have pushed back. Together, millions of people around the world have come together demanding sanity. And we have been able to take steps to reduce the nuclear danger, agree to cut the number of nuclear weapons, halt and ban nuclear explosive testing, curb their spread, and conclude the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons and hold governments accountable for the pledges they have made. And let's be really clear as we start. These weapons are one of the biggest threats and affronts to humanity that we face.
And so, because we are now approaching this important historic anniversary of the nuclear age, the Arms Control Association and Women Without War are very pleased to be able to bring together a very important set of panelists and speakers to mark these anniversaries, these events. And as we approach the anniversaries, the July 16th anniversary of the first nuclear test explosion, the August 6th, August 9th bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, unfortunately, the threats posed by nuclear weapons are growing once again. It's far too likely that nuclear weapons will be used again, whether that be in South Asia, in Europe, between the United States and Russia, in East Asia, between the United States and China, or on the Korean Peninsula. Just in the past month, we saw two nuclear-armed states, the United States and Israel, attack Iran, a state on the threshold of nuclear weapons, a decision that risks a wider war, ended Iran's cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and has derailed promising diplomatic prospects for a deal designed to prevent proliferation. Making matters worse, progress on nuclear disarmament between the largest nuclear powers, the United States and Russia, is stalled. And an unconstrained three-way arms race involving US, Russia, and China is on the horizon. The five recognized nuclear-armed states that are part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the United States, Russia, China, the UK, and France, have failed to engage in constructive disarmament and risk reduction diplomacy for more than a decade. Instead, they're spending tens of billions of dollars annually to modernize and upgrade their arsenals. And the US alone is on track to squander more than $1 trillion on nuclear weapons operations and upgrades over the next decade. So we're headed in the wrong direction. We need to move back from the nuclear brink and get back on the path towards the peace and security of a world without the fear of nuclear weapons and nuclear war. Now, none of this is inevitable. It is a result of choices that people and policymakers are making in our names. And for our sake and the sake of future generations to come, we believe, as I'm sure many of you do too, that it's crucial that we unite to call upon our policymakers to make better choices and to press them to take concrete steps to reduce the nuclear danger, to help put us back on the path to a world without nuclear weapons. So the starting point for sensible decisions on nuclear weapons and disarmament begins with a clear understanding of the harsh realities of nuclear weapons use, testing, and production, and their terrible effects on people and the environment. So as we look to the future, to the next 80 years, with or without nuclear weapons, it's crucial that we understand the past and the ongoing consequences of nuclear weapons use, testing, and production, and remember the lives, the dreams, and all that's been taken away by these weapons, and continue to do what we can to help the most affected communities to recover and heal.
Thank you, Darryl. So today we're asking you all to look at those realities and not turn away. And what you're going to see today is our first panel is all about the damage that these weapons have done. And the second one is about hope. It is so important for us to remember the wins our community has had so that we can build upon those wins. And the last panel is all about what we can do from here on in. Now, I want to just share a lot of our panelists and speakers and the videos you're going to be seeing talk about firsthand accounts of what people have experienced and the impacts these weapons have had on their lives. We are really lucky that people who have been a part of those experiences are willing to share those stories. And I just want to thank them all and acknowledge that comes with a huge emotional cost. So before we ask any of those panelists to come up, what I am going to do, both for those watching at home and for people in the room, is ask you to make a commitment before we ask them to take on that emotional challenge, that today, as you hear those stories, you won't just listen, but that you will share it. As they make calls to action, you won't just nod along, but that you will commit to actually doing them. And if you are willing to take that commitment, I'm going to ask you to say yes right now.
Yes.
Okay, y'all, you can be a bit louder than that. If you're going to make that commitment, say yes.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. This is what happens when you get an organizer in front of a room. So with that, we are going to kick off. We are incredibly lucky and grateful to ICANN for producing a phenomenal video from one of the Habakasha about their experiences of these WOMs. And that is going to play in a moment. Thank you.